Thank you, Chair, and thank you, participants. I want to recognize the presence of the MD for Kenya Power, who is my long-term friend, Engineer Kiror, my sister Masinde, and all of you. Good morning. I am here to represent my CS, Rebecca Miano, who is supposed to be here, but she's attending an AmCham meeting. We are having a meeting with the American Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and so she has asked me to stand in, and so I have a speech to read about e-mobility and what it means for industry. But because I have gotten you here, I think it's also good to put it, as Joy has put it, we really want to, one of the biggest consumers, because this event is put together by Kenya Power, one of the biggest consumers of power within Kenya is industry. And I want to paint a picture for industry before I read this, so that we can say where we want to go. The rest of the world in 2024 are looking at the fourth industrial revolution. Those of you who have been reading history, the first industrial revolution was experienced in the UK in 1740. And then from the UK, this spread to the rest of Europe. And when the Europeans moved to the Americas, they moved with industrialization. When cost of production became very high, a lot of the industrialization was moved to China, to India, to Asia, and Malaysia, and of course Singapore and Vietnam, and others came up. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because while the rest of the world is talking about a fourth industrial revolution, Africa is yet to experience its first industrial revolution. And there are reasons for that, and we will be discussing about that. But if we put the perspective, the 55 countries of Africa have a population of 1.3 billion people, which is 17% of the world. But our share of manufactured products in the global market is less than 3%. So 17%, our share of manufactured products is 2.8%. Let's look at Europe. Europe is 9% population-wise of the world. Their share of manufactured products is 24%. If we look at it the other way around, intra-European business, European services and goods doing business within the EU, 27 EU countries, is 72%. Intra-Africa business, 15%. So we start off with the short end of the stick. And power is critical for us to change that scenario. If Kenya was a vehicle, then the engine of that vehicle is industry. If that engine is not functioning, it does not matter how well you paint the body. If industry works the same way it was almost working when we took over after independence, our young people will get jobs, our farmers will get markets for their production, we will consume more power, our infrastructure, our foreign exchange, we all know the benefits. And so I am here to convince you that we need to change, and within the bottom-up economic agenda of His Excellency the President, manufacturing is at the center and the core of that business. And we can't do that conversation without looking at what is power, how are we going to manage that situation. And from where I sit, and that's why Joy was saying it, yesterday His Excellency the President directed that those who manufacture at night will be given 50% of their power cost. And as a Ministry for Investment, Trade and Industry, that is the best news we have had in more than 10 years. Those of you who know industrial area, our industrial area here, we have depopulated it. Where we used to manufacture today are go-downs for cheap imported goods. Where we used to employ 3,000 people in industrial area, today we have opened a church where we are praying for the jobs that we lost. This is where we are. I was telling the MD that the Eldoret town of 1980 was more industrialized than the Eldoret town of today, where you had Raymond's, you had Rivertex, you had Kennett. And so, as Kenyans, we have a duty. Kenya has been a leading manufacturer in the region. In fact, as we speak, East, Central, and Southern Africa, at some point, were only beaten by South Africa. So we have been a big manufacturing center. But for us to sustain that momentum, we need a different type of thinking. If we are going to think the way we are thinking, if Uganda is going to give us power to industries at 5 US cents per kilowatt hour, Ethiopia is doing 3, Tanzania is doing 5, 6, we want to give 10, no, not 10, 20. That is how we have lost our competitiveness, and I am very happy with the directive of His Excellency the President that we do that. The last question I want to ask all of us here, that when we think about industrialization, I've talked about our 3% as Africans, and therein lies the story. America was industrialized by Americans. Europe was industrialized by Europeans. China was industrialized by Chinese. India was industrialized by Indians. Somehow, when you reach Africa, we think that industrialization is somebody else's business. We somehow imagine that industry is for government. All those countries that I've mentioned, there's no country that has succeeded in the world in industrializing itself by government building industries. Industry is for the private sector. So what I'm trying to say is that the job of industrializing Africa is the job of Africans. The job of industrializing Kenya is the job of those of us who are sitting here. So if you are imagining there is somebody else, we spend a lot of energy going out there looking for investors. Somehow we imagine that the investor must look different from us. I think time has come when we as Kenyans, we are importing toothpicks, we are importing matchboxes, and when you talk to Kenyans, they will tell you they don't have money. I have watched this country since we started devolution in 2013, and what do you see? Every corner around Eldoret has a new hotel. Every new corner in Nyeri has a new hotel. Everybody who gets money thinks you must build a hotel. That big mansion that you have built in the village that you don't live in could be a factory. We went to India and we saw what they were doing. Somebody is manufacturing chilies at the backyard of his house and is selling this internationally. So my challenge to you Kenyans is that if we are going to change this country, each one of us is going to play our role. So if the people of Kiambu, let's call them the Kikuyu community, cannot industrialize Kiambu, if the people of Eldoret cannot invest in manufacturing, if the people of Homa Bay cannot invest in manufacturing, who do you expect to invest? Why do you think that an industrialist must look different? So the challenge that I want to give you today as we talk about e-mobility, even in that space, I was very happy with the story I saw here. These opportunities come to us. This government is working very hard to open up markets. You can't believe it, that on 17th of December, His Excellency the President signed a Kenya EU Economic Partnership Agreement that allows Kenya to sell nearly 14,000 products to 27 EU countries, duty-free, quota-free. But where are those goods? Sometimes I think we are behaving like a factory that closed down, but the marketing department is still selling the products. So we are opening up markets, and we don't have the product. So after we have signed the agreement, now we are asking who is going to invest. Let me give you the example of AGOA. AGOA is coming to an end in 2025. We had nearly 20 years to produce under AGOA. So we sign an agreement with the US, and then we sit back. And then what happens now? You have duty-free, quota-free access to the US market, 300 million people. You have signed an agreement, you have no idea what to do with it. So what happens? Somebody else relocates his factory from India, brings it to Kenya, imports this material, makes a suit, make it made in Kenya, and then he takes your share of what you spent, taxpayers' money. So you're opening up a market for which you have no idea what to do. You can imagine that one country has to sell to 27 countries in the EU. This is an opportunity that we as Kenyans need to take charge. We are at the tail end of concluding the Kenya-US Strategic Partnership Agreement. Again, we are opening up opportunities in that space. You know that the African Continental Free Trade Area is already working, the EAC area. So mine, really, as we talk about e-mobility, because we know the opportunities, we have put the incentives, the tax incentives that you need. I want to call upon each one of us to take it as our patriotic duty to invest in manufacturing, because that is where the future of the world is going. I think, MD, that those comments are enough. So I will not read, I will, as I said, I tell my CS I didn't read your speech, because I think that we needed an honest conversation. And I hope that you've been touched by this story, and that we need to invest in manufacturing. I thank you.